Okay,
But
so
anyway,
the
Samoa Joe.
connection here is TK's Twitter meltdown about Jinder Mahal, possibly leading into AEW, changing how it gives out title shots. Samoa Joe cuts a promo on Dynamite this week. It's his first live promo as champion. And he says there's going to be no more of this whining on social media to get a title shot. You have to basically apply to get a title shot. You know, you give there's a championship committee. We don't know who's on it, but you can apply to get a title shot, you know, based on your resume, your win-loss record, things like that. And perhaps they will grant you one. Now, granted, at the end of this segment, Hook came out and just told Joe that they were having a title match the next week. So my headcanon is that Hook
that stuff starts on
filled
Monday.
out his application. He was approved. And Tony Khan just told him, go out there and tell Joe that your application was approved and you're getting a title shot, I guess.
Hang on, just let me finish this first.
Yeah. I got a few tweets.
I think it's amazing that Samoa Joe was like, no more whining on social media at the exact moment his boss was whining on social media. So I think that's pretty cool. No, there should be like something like that. And you know what? Make it part of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
You get 2 or 3 people that are really, you know, good talkers, really funny guys. You make them the committee. And you have people come in and like, you know, you could run a really funny thing with you know, Eddie Kingston about filling out paperwork improperly. You could do a hilarious. I'm sure there's tons of things you could do with like a Luchasaurus type or the House of Black. You know,
John Moxley's application gets denied because he filled it out in blood.
Yeah, exactly. And he spelled Moxley wrong. You know, like it's just you could do all kinds of things and you could make it part of the show because like you say, and I agree with it 1001%, wrestling is at its best when it's treated like a real sport. When you have to do things to earn that. Not just like, and that was WWE got into such a rut because every Monday night someone would come out and start talking. Somebody would interrupt them, and then that would lead to a match either right then or later that night. And every time they did it, and they did it for years, every time they did it, I would go, what were you going to do if that guy didn't interrupt?
Yeah, the 20-minute opening promo.
Like, were there no other matches?
Like for like 10 years, they did that every night. Where the and and it kind of leads you to go like, are they not planning out these episodes in advance? Like, what was going to happen if you guys didn't have a, you know?
Like, did they go like cameras live? Let's see how this goes.
See, AEW never does that. I think I recall them maybe doing it once, but generally, like, they give you the card and
that's
there's
it,
no
right?
making matches during it. Yeah.
And you used to get that for Raw too, and they've started to do it again. It might be a Triple H thing, you know, where they are announcing, like we just talked about. Here's what the main event of next week is going to be. You're going to want to see that. And for a long time, it was always like, tune into Raw to watch so-and-so respond to so-and-so's challenge from last week. And it's like, cool. These guys are having an extremely slow conversation because they're taking a week to respond to each other. Like, does no one have a text message? Like, God. But yes, I digress. That was it.
So, well, Joe did an interview with Sports Illustrated as well, and Tony Khan talked about this at the last pay-per-view punch-up media scrum. Or I don't think there was any
pretend press conference. Yeah.
Basically saying, in response to the Continental Classic getting good reviews, saying like, okay, our audience has really said, you know, we like this sport-centric approach to it, and he's actually started using that term again. And I feel like Samoa Joe coming out and saying what he said was sort of a signal to the audience that, like, hey, you know, that sports-centric thing that you love so much about the Continental Classic, that's gonna enter into our world title picture as well. Because the last 2 episodes of Dynamite have not done good ratings. And you wonder if because the Continental Classic had been so key, for the last 6 weeks. That tournament not being there anymore, maybe that is partially responsible for the lower ratings. But now you have Joe saying like, all right, you're not getting a title shot unless you've won a bunch of matches
Yeah.
and your body of work has been approved by so I think it's great. I think it's moving AEW into a new chapter.
And here's the thing, it's easy to do because you don't have to give people real numbers. You know what I mean? Like, we know Goldberg didn't win 175 matches in a row. Like that was just physically and psychologically impossible in the time frame. So you could still pick and choose people, but you can create reasons for them to have that title shot as opposed to, and the other side of it too is that the talent needs to remember, and I say this about wrestlers, I think 3 times a year, and every time I mean it for every wrestler who's working today, winning that title should be your number one goal.
Yeah.
Because
And
when it seems like a lot of people want it, more people want to see it defended.
Yeah. And I think that's been an issue in AEW is that a lot of wrestlers are kind of in their own universe, and it's like the world title doesn't factor into that. And I've said like Wardlow goes undefeated for like a year, never gets a title shot. And it's like, well, why? Jade Cargill goes like her entire AEW career, never loses a match, wins the TBS title, but never challenges for the world title. So all paths are not leading to the world championship, and hopefully this kind of new structure will sort of lead to that. Whereas in WWE, everybody's goal is to get to the world championship. And you see that in how, or like at least a world championship, you see that in how they're building up the Royal Rumble, where it's like all of these guys, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Cody Rhodes, like they're all trying to get to the world title, but they all have to win the same match to do it.
Yeah.
And it makes the Royal Rumble feel so much more important. And
when when it's guys like that, it makes the title seem more important too, because it's like those guys could just they're the type of guys that could just be like, hey, I'd like a title shot, and they'd be like, yeah, no problem. So the fact that they all want to get through it and be the first one to the thing and not just like wait their turn or whatever, blah blah blah. But it does bring us to our second, we're 2 of 2, interesting segue